Hello, this is James Parsons-Moore, Revit Specialist at Computer Aided Business Systems. And today I'm going to talk to you about walls and the location line that you specify when you're actually drawing a wall in. It can lead to some confusion between designers and Revit users as to the best location line to use. And if you don't use the correct location line, it can cause headaches moving further on in the project. So hopefully what I'm about to show you is going to clear up a few things. So just bear with me on some of it because it's going to be a little bit talky. So to start off with, for those of you that don't know, I'm just going to talk you through it from the basics. I'm going to press wall. I've just played with a couple of wall styles in here. I'm going to deal with the external walls. And to start off with, I'm just going to choose this basic wall construction. It's just a brick and block masonry wall with some plasterboard inside or a plaster finish inside. I'm going to choose that wall, and by default normally the location line is set to wall centre line. So I'm just going to show you what that means exactly. If I just left click to start my wall and zoom in, can you see just there I'm drawing a line basically, and it is justifying the wall either side of that line across the centre of the wall. So as I click there, move my mouse down, you can see how that's working. Also just note that I'm actually drawing in a clockwise rotation. I'll point that out in a few minutes. So, if I change this to say finish face exterior and come from here, can you see now this time I'm drawing a line and the wall is being justified from the outside face of the wall. Okay, this time we'll go finish face interior, and again I think you're getting it by now, we're justifying it to the inside face of the finish of my wall. Let's look at the last couple. There's 2 or 3 left. Now we've got core face exterior, core face interior, and core centre line. Now for me to show you those, I'm going to first of all actually go into the settings of the walls to actually point out where they are. Now what I'm going to do before I do that, I'm just going to turn thin line mode off to put my line weights back on, because it's going to make it clearer when I go into the edit type. I'm going to edit type in here. I'm going to change my preview to a plan view. And you can see the 2 green lines. Those are basically my core boundaries. So we have core face exterior, because obviously that's the exterior side of my wall, and we have core face interior, because that's obviously the interior face of my wall. In between them is obviously core centre line, directly in between them. Let's have a look at how they're actually located and why they're designated to be exactly there and exactly there. If I come over to my type parameters over here where it says structure edit, this is where all the settings and the layers and functions of my wall are actually set. Now as you can see, just very briefly, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 different layers within my wall. 1, 2, 3, 4. They're set a function. This just allows us to set what we call our priorities of the wall, which in the inner workings, we'll go through it at another time, is how the actual elements of the wall all join up together. Next to that we have a material assigned to that. Here we've got brickwork common, 5 class back insulation, concrete masonry just there, and a gypsum wall board just here. And then they have a thickness assigned to them just here. Now as we're going down, obviously just here you can see where we've got 3 and 5, we have what we call a core boundary. Well, they just indicate these locations just here. So basically what we do when we're creating walls is we put the structural element between those core boundaries. I know in a masonry wall the whole of the construction can be load bearing and can be the structural element, but more cases than not we just tend to have that part of the wall just there as a structural load bearing element within our wall. For example, if it's timber frame, light gauge steel, maybe even a masonry thin joint or a concrete framed building, that would all be the structural side of it, and any brickwork outside of it or block work with render is basically just a rain cladding, that's all it is. Okay, and it's the same on the inside. The plasterboard is just a finish, whether we've got plasterboard on dabs, on battens, or a wet plaster finish inside there. It is just purely a finish inside there to make it look nice, and obviously to give it some thermal rating as well. So that's how the core boundary and the core faces are located within my wall. So when I'm drawing in, I'm going to ask you this question: which one should I use? Now, to be honest, you can use any of the location lines when you're drawing a wall. When you're first set up projects, you have different parameters right at the beginning of the project. For example, in housing, quite often you're given some internal measurements that you need it to be to. So quite often you find the architect will use the finished face interior to set out all of the walls, because he knows that it's got to be 7 metres by 11 metres, for example, finish to finish. However, a bit later on in the project, you'll get talking to some sort of old school technicians, and they'll start to moan because that doesn't set the building out to brick dimensions, etc. So they would like to set it out using the finish face exterior, because they know the brick dimensions like the back of the hand, and they can just quickly state what the brick dimension will be across a building. Now, both of those are kind of good arguments for either side of it, but they're going to cause problems for you later on if you choose either of those. Let me show you what I mean. I'm just going to hit modify to come out of there, and I'm going to delete these walls just here. And where we have just there, I've just drawn some reference planes just so that I can get an idea of where I'm drawing, and just space these walls that I'm going to draw in the equal spacings. So I'm going to create a wall, the same wall construction here, and this first one I'm going to do to a finish face exterior across here, like so. And you see I'm just sketching it along that reference plane. Once I've done that, I'm going to create another one to finish face interior. I'm going to start it from there, and you can see how it's just defined to the other side of my wall. This next one I'm going to do a slightly different one. I'm going to say core face exterior. So I'm going to start it just there, and I'm just going to zoom in so you can see which part of the wall that's doing it to. You can see that okay, and then to there, like so. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to split all of these walls in plan. So to split them, I'm just going to bring on Modify Tools, either by selecting an object and bringing on my Split tool. So I'm just going to split that wall there, that one there, and that one there. Now, it's not uncommon in architecture to first of all design the building just in one wall construction, and then after that say, right, that facade looks a little bit plain, what I need to do is put some rendering in there. We'll just put like a render strip in there. So this is what I'm going to do just here. I'm actually going to swap these walls out for a different construction, which is very, very similar structurally. It will be, plasterboard is going to be the same, the structure is going to be the same as in the masonry concrete blocks. The cavity is going to be the same, but then instead of having 102.5mm brickwork, we're going to have a 75mm block with 22mm of render on it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to swap this one over simply by clicking it. Now just bear in mind that the location line of this wall is set along the outside external face. So when I swap this wall over to this construction, watch what happens. It actually justifies and shrinks in from that line. Let me just turn thin line mode back on. And you can see what that's done to my structure there. It's moved all of the structure because it's justifying to that same line there. Well, to be honest, that's not good enough. That's going to mess up our project. Your engineer's not going to be happy if he's done all of your structural calcs, etc. And it's just going to make it look wrong and cause problems. And trying to realign it to the wall afterwards can be a bit of a headache. So let's look at this one. I'm going to swap this one over there. That's much better. That's a much, much better detail. In fact, if I just drag that wall just a touch over there like that, so they join up, there we go. It looks nice. It's like a nice detail now. We've even got my render inset from the edge of my brickwork to stop weathering to my render. Very good. You think I've done this detail before? So you can see how that's going to work, and that looks quite nice. However, it will cause problems in other ways. Now, I've worked on a lot of projects in the past where I've been either running projects or working as a technician on them, where later on a project you've specified some kind of plaster board, whether it be 15mm, 25mm wet plaster, whatever it is, but then later on the contractors come back to you and said, you know what, we're not going to use that. We're not going to use 25mm of plaster anymore. We're going to be using just a single skim of 15mm or something like that, just a single layer. So later on in a project, once your engineer has done all of his structural setting out, once you've got it set out on site, once all of your brick dimensions have been done, really you don't want your external and your masonry part of your wall to change. Who cares really if your plasterboard just squidges in by a little bit? So let's have a look at what happens in this case. I'm going to keep this one the same, but on this wall construction, I'm going to change my plasterboard thickness to 15mm. Watch what happens. again we have the same problem. You don't really want that happening. Obviously, if it was happening to all of your walls at the same time, for all of your wall constructions, it will look right in plan, but it won't be right because all of your measurements, all of your setting out will all be changed. Like I said, very angry engineer. Now let's look at this one. Now this one, like I said, I set out along the core face exterior. Let's see what happens when I change this wall construction over. Wonderful. Let's drag it this way a little bit, just to join it up. There we go. And as you can see, this is the part of the wall that stays where it is, meaning all of my structure will just stay where it is, and my cavity as well, unless I change my cavity thickness, will just stay uniform throughout my project. Now this is my preferred option. Now it depends on what kind of project you're working on. I've always done a lot of housing, and this has always suited me. But for like large commercial projects where you're setting out kind of thick wall construction with, say, light gauge steel with 140mm studs, where you're setting some beams up in between it, quite often you want to use the centre of the core, because you can set this out to grids, which then you can place your vertical wind posts and beams and columns onto that same grid. So I'd use that. But in this case, I would quite often just use a core face exterior. Now let's just delete those walls just there. In fact, I'm going to delete that wall just there as well. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to draw a quick section through my building, like so, straight through there. I'm going to go to that section to have a look what that looks like. I'm going to change it to 1 to 50 and change the detail level to fine so I can see what's going on with my structure. Now I'm going to go back to my plan, and I'm going to draw a floor construction in that's going to overlap with this wall. So let me go to my first floor to draw this just for now, and I'm going to go architecture, floor. My first one, I'm going to do a beam and block floor in here, and I'm going to go pick wall. I'm going to place the first line along that core boundary across there. I'm then just going to draw some lines in from here, coming out to there, and up to there, finishing my floor. And because it overlaps with my external walls, Revit's asking me if it wants to join it up for me. I'm going to say yes please, save me a job. Let's go back to that section, and there you can see typical detail of a beam and block floor hitting an external wall. Now what happens quite often is your engineer will come back and say, you know what, we've got too much loading on 100mm block below ground floor. And obviously below my ground floor level, if this was my external ground floor level, I wouldn't want brickwork and plasterboard going all the way down as well. So in this case, what I'm going to do, I'm going to swap my wall construction out below ground floor level. Now you can use this using a stacked wall, or quite often I like to just pick a wall, split it, and just change the construction over retrospectively. So to do that, all I'm going to do is select my wall and split the element just here at the bottom of there. It's not quite on it, but you get the point. All I'm going to do then is take this wall construction and swap it for a below ground wall construction that I've pre-made, just there. There we go, you can see what's happened there. Because I've done that, it doesn't matter that my masonry's grown, because my location line was set to always follow through along this point. And you can see because my block work is 2.5mm smaller than my brickwork as well, that detail looks right. Now I know it's not a fully finished detail, but it's the start of a good detail. Okay, now I hope that kind of clears up how you can set up your location lines and the best ones to use. You can draw it in whichever way you want to start off with, because retrospectively you can change the location line just by picking the wall and changing it in your properties. Okay, until next time, and we have another tip and trick, thank you very much for listening in. Thank you, bye bye.